Hello, I'm here with Grace Schmitt. Grace was born on November 14th, 1931 in Palatka, Florida, to Noni and Arthur David Hollenbeck. Arthur had migrated from Kansas to Florida and taken work as a fisherman along the Florida coast. Noni was from Alabama and one-half Cherokee, while Arthur's parents had emigrated from Holland, originally to New York State and eventually to Kansas. Grace's father passed when she was 12 years old, and that was the end of her formal schooling as she became responsible for raising her younger sisters and brothers. So Grace, tell me, what brought you to New Mexico?
To New Mexico, well, my health.
Your health?
I have asthma.
Okay.
And I had a very hard time breathing and stuff, and I was under doctor's care all the time, and I decided, well, if I go west, maybe it'll get drier.
And the first place you lived in New Mexico was?
The first place was in Albuquerque.
Albuquerque.
We were there for, I guess, about a year. And then we moved out to Madrid.
And that would have been 1968, 69?
Something like that, yeah. And we lived there for, I guess, a couple of years, and then we moved over here to Cerrillos.
And when you lived in Madrid, that was when you were working as the cook and restaurant manager at the mine shaft?
Yeah, that's right.
And you were also working at the Golden, or did you wait until you moved to Cerrillos to work at the Golden?
No, I was in Cerrillos. We had moved over here, and I commuted down there and ran their kitchen for them. And I was even there on the Sundays when they had all the hippies came out.
I would bet you have a lot of stories about Sundays at the Golden Inn.
Right.
So when you moved to Madrid in '68 and started working at the mine shaft, what was the town like then? Back then, how many people were there? Not many.
There was only about 51.
51 people?
Mm-hmm.
I think by the time I moved there in '75, there might have been 15.
Right.
I think, of the people who had always been there.
Right.
Did they provide much business for you at the mine shaft, or did you have to depend on the people taking a nice country ride on 14?
Well, it was mostly that. I had a band there on the weekends, and they came from all around, from Albuquerque, Santa Fe, and everywhere.
Did you get Junior Brown to play there? Or
I
George
don't
Bullfrog?
George Bullfrog, yeah, he played.
Was that before the Last Mile Ramblers, or was that?
Yeah.
And then with too,
And
maybe?
then with them later, whenever I was at the Golden Inn, I had the kitchen down there.
And so I know they played at the Golden Inn a lot.
Right. Mm-hmm.
That was actually the first place I saw them play.
Yeah, George was a good friend of mine.
And George is still around. There's somebody we could interview too.
Yeah, sure could.
So when you moved to Cerrillos, what prompted you to take over the Card House Café? Just an opportunity that you saw sitting there waiting to be taken advantage of?
Yeah, it was, somebody had it and then they closed it. And then I knew the owner of the building, and he used to rent it to the other people, and so I talked to him and we got him together, and I decided. But at the time I was managing the kitchen down at the Golden Inn.
So you had to spread yourself pretty thin.
I brought even some of the supplies that I had from there to the Card House.
Cool. Did you enjoy running the Card House?
Yes, I did. I enjoyed it very much. There was a lot of my friends and the hippies.
Well, you did a big business, I think,
yeah,
at least from my perception, from the folks in Madrid. Right. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. But first I want to talk about some of the folks in Cerrillos, if you have any memories. Like many small towns, Cerrillos must have had its fair share of eccentrics.
Oh, yeah.
And bright lights, too. And sometimes the bright lights were the eccentrics, too.
Right.
When I think about people like back then, I think about Mr. Mitchell.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitch in his top hat at the Fiesta parades, and I think of Mary Tapero at the bar in the restaurant.
Right.
Any stories about them you want to share with us? I always looked at them as somewhat pillars of the community back then.
Right. Well, let's see.
Mr. Mitchell could be considered a curmudgeon.
Yeah.
Back in the day.
Yeah, they came to eat at my cafe there quite a bit.
Did they? And Mary too? Would Mary come down? Or?
Mary, not very much. Usually,
she had a real place.
Leo, her husband, used to come down once in a while. but somebody had to be there at the bar all the
All
time.
the time.
Because they were always knocking on the door, nothing else.
Exactly. Now, any other folks from the old days back in Cerrillos that you remember as being particularly notable?
Well,
Alice at the
Alice
post office
Lopez, yes.
she could be interesting to interact with.
Yeah. Well, she's in a nursing home now,
Is she?
here in Santa Fe.
Right in Santa Fe?
I think, and so is Mary Taparo.
Is that right? Both
Yeah,
of them?
I need to get over
See, now my
twice.
memories of both of those ladies is you don't want to ring their bell too much because
Right.
they'll get it right back to you.
Right.
You know, especially Mary, but sometimes you didn't get your mail at the post office if you weren't polite to Alice.
Right. Yeah, I even worked as a postmistress there once.
Is that right, with Alice? Or?
I was
Yeah.
stood in for her when she had to do something else.
Okay, so tell me about what Madrid and Cerrillos were like back in those days in the late 60s and the early 70s. I'm pretty sure that not everybody had a phone line to their homes.
No,
Not everybody probably had well water or water systems. What was it different when you went out there than where you'd been in Florida and California?
Oh yeah, much different.
Did it remind you at all of growing up rural in Florida? Living out in the country
Yeah,
like
a little
that?
bit. Mm-hmm.
You know, any particular memories that you have? Hard winters, or
What, when I first
hot
came
summers?
over?
When you first came out and lived in the Madrid Cerrillos area.
Well, the first couple of days I was here, we rented. It was 3 carloads of us, my family, and like the daughters and their husbands and the babies and so forth. And there was, like I said, 3 carloads. One of the cars broke down, so I think they had to get rid of it, and they put those 2 cars together, and then we were in a kind of a truck, and kind of lose my thoughts.
Oh, that's all right. You'll pull them back.
I'm getting old.
Just
you know.
in general, talking about movies. So you all came out in 3 vehicles,
Yeah.
and you went to Albuquerque first, and then you moved to
No, we came by Santa Fe first. We spent the
Okay.
first night in New Mexico in Santa
Santa
Fe.
Fe?
Mhm.
Okay.
And we got up and then we seen the way the town was laid out, and it was hard to get out of. And we were all over the place trying to find newspaper, restaurants and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then we got the newspaper, the guys did, and they looked at it for jobs, because there was 3 of them, my husband and the 2, my daughter's husbands. So there was 3 men that was going to be looking for work. So they got the newspaper and looked, and most of the work was in Albuquerque,
That's how you ended up
because
in
my
Albuquerque.
husband was a welder,
Okay.
and the others, I think, worked on roofs or something, tarring. And,
Well,
anyway,
it makes sense.
yeah, so we went down to,
And then what
Albuquerque.
brought you to Madrid from Albuquerque?
well,
Was it the job at the mine shaft, or?
no, it was that we wanted to get in the country.
Okay.
So my husband was just a big cowboy anyway. So we came out
In
and
the right place.
found a place. It took 2 or 3 runs out here to find one, you know, talking to different people about what was available.
Did you like Madrid when you first moved in there?
Yeah, it was kind of quiet, but there was only about 52 people
Yeah.
there, so. And
There
the
was-
mine shaft was open,
The
so.
mine shaft was open. Was the water system still working in town for everybody?
For over there, they had tanks, I think, mostly.
I'm just thinking in terms of when I moved to Madrid in '75, the water system was working, but it wasn't healthy water. I'm just curious
Right.
if back in, it's like '68 when you moved there.
I guess it was
if
fair.
people
We
used
used,
the-
you know,
used
what
it?
we had there, but we did usually buy our drinking water.
Oh, okay.
So-
That makes sense.
Mhm.
I do remember in the first summer of '75 that they were worried about hepatitis B in Madrid because of the water supply and the way it was. And that was the big thing that prompted the town people that moved in to start a water committee,
Yeah.
redo the reservoir and things like that. In Cerrillos, did a lot of people have well water then, or did they?
Yeah,
They
I
have
think
the
they
water
did.
system with
I
the big
never,
tank.
I don't remember too much about it. My husband took care of all that.
Oh, okay, well, that was convenient, huh?
Right.
That's very handy. Well, let's talk about a couple other places in Cerrillos. Tiffany's was really a very popular restaurant and bar, and they had the Melodrama.
Yeah, I think they were 4.
Did you guys see a lot of activity in town because of Tiffany's, do you think?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they came in by busloads.
See, now, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
They came in by busloads to Tiffany's. I
They had regular tour bus that came in.
Pretty neat. And did you see any impact from that yourself?
Oh, yeah. Usually when they came in and wanted to eat at Tiffany's, that was the older people. So the kids all came to my cafe, and I served them hamburgers and Cokes and stuff like that.
So it's always nice to know that one business can
Right.
help another business. When was it a big shock to the townsfolk in Cerrillos when Tiffany's burned down?
Oh, yes, very much so.
Was there
That
talk?
was
Was
sad.
there talk about arson, if I remember back then?
Yeah, that was the man that rented it. Because he had rented it from them, they had closed it, and then he had opened it up.
Can you refresh my memory and tell me whether that ever came to be an arson case?
I don't.
'Cause
I can't remember.
I don't remember that it did, but
I don't either.
I do remember the times. Did you ever go in there and watch the Melodramas?
No, I
No?
never did. I never had time. I had to
You
serve
were
everybody
always
else.
working.
Yeah.
You know, you missed an opportunity there.
I sure
think
did.
The Melodramas were a lot of fun. I actually was in a couple of those Melodramas back
Oh, yeah.
back then with some other folks, and it was a lot of fun. We had passed out peanuts to people so they could throw them at us. And it was so corny, it was fun. You know, it was so bad it's fun, and that was, I guess, what Melodrama was all about. Well, moving right along, here's a question I'm going to ask you about right now because I forgot to write it into the script. There were a lot of musicians who lived in the area back in the late 60s and in the 70s. There was Junior Brown, there was Keith Smith, there was George Bullfrog and some of the Ramblers. Lisa Gilkison, before she became Eliza, was living there, and the Tusker crowd was hanging around. Did you get a lot of business from the musicians, or were they typical poor musicians?
No, they came.
They came in. Did they ever play at the Card House?
No, I don't think so.
No.
I can't remember them doing that. They talked about it because I had a small stage back there where the jukebox was.
Right.
But
that would have been fun.
yeah,
That would
yeah, I had a bingo there for a while.
When you did the poetry readings,
Right.
Don.
Right. Yeah.
Don organized them. I kind of helped them get some momentum for the poetry reason. Did you ever make any money off us poor hippies?
Oh,
when we
maybe
were
a little
doing
bit.
poetry
Not
readings
much.
and
I never
stuff
tried
like
to
that?
make money off of
Well, no, I don't mean make. I mean, I didn't mean try. Your prices were too good.
Yeah.
You could tell you weren't trying to fleece us. And I think that's why your restaurant was so popular.
Yeah, it was.
You know, with the folks from Madrid, because it was a safe, warm place. You could get a good meal at people's prices before you went home to your house that had holes in the walls and your wood stove didn't work too well and stuff
Right.
like that. So
Yeah, some of them were even in Kivas.
yeah, oh yeah.
We dug out.
Well, that Rosalie Triana, who was involved with the Melodrama, lived in a pit house up on the mesa above where the Cross Fork Ranch is,
Oh, yeah.
and where Matthew Mather and a few other people lived up there. She was very proud of that pit house. You know.
Yeah. They were all good people. I enjoyed them.
You got to see most of them play, I would think, at the Cerrillos Fiestas, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
Now, your granddaughter was Fiesta Queen in 1979, is that right? I think?
Yeah, I think it was.
Check my facts. I think I took them.
That was Susan's sister.
I thought I copied a picture of her, but no. I thought I had a picture of her in the parade, but I do remember that, so that must have been fun.
It was.
In '79. Did you participate in the Fiesta in any way besides keeping the restaurant open?
Well, I didn't really keep the restaurant open for me. I locked my doors and, well, I didn't lock them, but I put up a counter thing out in the front of the Card House.
Okay, that's right.
And so I took food out like that and sold it, and I gave all the proceeds to the
Fire department?
department.
Yeah. Well, like most small town fiestas, there's a purpose in mind besides having fun. And the Cerrillos Fiesta, we always put the money towards the Turquoise Trail Fire Department. And one of the highlights of the festivities was always the fire department
Oh, yeah.
water battles with the hoses and the ball and the string and stuff like
Well, you
that.
know, they'd come around at Christmas time and throw candy out to the kids. They'd all line up on the street. That was really nice.
You know, I don't even remember doing that. I don't remember seeing that at Christmas time. I guess I was probably buried in snow in Madrid.
Probably.
We're out getting wood or something like that. Any other stories about Tiffany's that you can think of? I mean, just quirky things like that that kind of made it. It was
Well,
a
I never
different.
got to go there very often because I was always so busy.
Well, I
serving
can
the others
understand
down.
that, and it was certainly a little bit more expensive than your restaurant.
Right.
And you
True.
could get a drink there.
But I did go there a few times, a few drinks, or either, well, we eat off of the buffet they have.
I love the Old West atmosphere
Yeah.
of the inside.
How about
Of
that
the
fountain
restaurant.
that was inside?
Yeah,
Isn't that nice?
yeah. The whole. It was really a shame when it burned down because
Yeah, very much.
primarily because it never got rebuilt.
Well, how
It
about
was
all of those
historical.
pictures that was on
Yeah.
the walls?
Yeah.
I think that was something, some of those pictures were taken out of there.
Before the fire.
And maybe that's why they thought there
You
was
think
something
that's
shady
maybe
about
that's.
it.
Well, I think anytime a business burns down,
Yeah. it's
people
gotta be
have
some
suspicions about whether there was another reason besides this just happened. You want to tell me a little? Now, I took this picture from you,
Mhm.
and this isn't. I screwed up scanning it.
Okay, it's okay.
But tell me a little bit about the miners.
Well-
Where was this mine? Is this
I'm
one of
not
the
sure.
gold
This
mines?
was my husband's,
This is one of the gold
Joe
mines
Schmitt's. And,
up
was
in the
one-
Ortiz though.
Yeah, I believe Joe is in here somewhere. I don't know where.
It's quite a group of
Yeah.
miners there.
Yeah, it is. You can't hardly tell with those.
Okay. Well, it's kind of. I copied over it in error when I had it in queue for my printer. But yeah, this is the Goldfields miners from back in the late '60s. That now they're doing a lot more of the leach mining and stuff like that than going actually into the ground and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So you see a bigger scar field when you drive by the Ortiz and you see that mine.
Well, see, my husband, Joe Schmitt, he was working the mine down in Golden, that one that's up on the hill.
Uh-huh.
He worked there. He was foreman, I think. And he worked there for years. And then the one that was just above Cerrillos, there,
Right.
Goldfield, he worked up there, and he was also foreman there. So
It's good to be
I
fit.
used to have a lot of pictures of that in
Of
there.
that the mine itself and
Yeah,
some of his
I
buddies
think I
and
gave
things
them
like
to his
that.
son. if I'm not
Okay,
mistaken.
that would certainly make sense.
Yeah, Joe died about 6 years ago.
I'm going to ask you to just expand a little bit on what your impression was of all the youngsters like me that came out in '75 when Joe Huber sold the town of Madrid.
Right.
And for those who don't, Madrid's 3 miles away from Cerrillos. Madrid was a coal mining town that, as Grace said, when she moved there in 1968, there was about 50 people. When I moved there in 1975, there were probably still about 10 or 15 historic residents of the town and approximately 200 new residents of the town. And we kind of just invaded that part of north central New Mexico. And
Well, it was a little strange.
I mean, I'm just curious because I know from our perspective, I came from graduate school in Wyoming. I'd lived in the area before. But some people came from California that had never been to New Mexico. Some people came from Chicago. And I just wondered what the people who lived in Cerrillos thought about all these strange people showing up in Madrid and kind of dominating
Well, a lot of them were
the
looking down
landscape.
on them, but not me.
That was kind of my impression, and I think one of the reasons your place was so popular was because you were open to people.
Yeah. Right.
You know, I mean, it was you were fair. You accepted people for who they were.
Yeah.
If they didn't pay, you wouldn't let them in the next time, probably, or you could
Oh,
run
I
them a
did.
tab. But I mean,
A bunch of them run tabs.
you accepted
But you know
people.
what? They always paid me.
Well, that's good
I
to
never
hear.
had no problem.
It's good to have your faith in people
Right.
fulfilled and
I think so.
and validated. But you know, you were very well liked by everybody in Madrid because you were so fair and so open to people, and you had people's prices at your restaurant.
Right.
And you could go there and you could warm up, you could get a good meal, and you not generally worry about getting harassed by anybody.
Right.
You know, which was nice at those times.
Yeah, even some of them would help me clean up there at night, you know, if like I'd been there for longer than
Yeah.
I usually was. They'd help me with the floors and everything else, put everything away, help me wash the dishes, the whole thing.
Well, that's what happens when you run a people's restaurant.
Yeah,
You know, and
I had a good time there.
And those were the days, and people
Yeah.
actually liked that restaurant so much because of the loose atmosphere. It was casual, you know, and it was fun. Before I get completely off the minor thing, are there any other memories you have of the miners? Anybody in particular? Any situations that come to mind from the time you were living there?
Not anything particular. Like I said, my husband was Joe when I married him,
Right.
and he didn't work in the mine particularly, but he worked with all of it. You know,
As a supervisor.
actually mostly in the what do you call them? The processing.
Oh, okay.
They run it through this.
After the mines came in,
Right.
they'd run it
Yeah,
through
they'd
the
run it
machinery
through
to
this.
break it down
Right.
and stuff like that, stamp mill kind of operation and things
Right.
like that.
Mhm.
So he's got a lot of business from his buddies in the mines?
Yeah, some.
Yeah, some. He's got more business from the hippies in Madrid?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I really did.
I just had to ask, I'm sorry. I'm not trying to put you
Yeah,
on
I
the
did.
spot.
I made most of my money from them.
Okay, I'm going to step off of the local stage just briefly and ask you about your memories of some other times past. Not necessarily, well, we'll get to World War II and places like that, but in Cerrillos in the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of social unrest, if you will. There's the Vietnam War, the Vietnam conflict.
Right.
Some people were for the war, some people were against the war, some people were for long hair, some people were against it. What was it like for you in Cerrillos? Was there anything that really struck you at that time? Were there families in Cerrillos that may have lost a son that,
Yeah, there was, but I can't remember
that
exactly.
you know, felt a particular way about the war, that might have been upset by people who protested the war? I'm always curious about how national events have impact on a local level.
Well, I think most everybody was against it, you know, but it was something they had to tolerate. So,
Well, exactly, until
so they kind
stopped
of followed in line, you know.
I know how it was. In that time, in the late 60s, I was still in Baltimore. I was very close to Washington, D.C. and went down for demonstrations and things.
My son was in the Navy during
My brother was in the Marines, and he was in Vietnam while I was demonstrating against the war. It didn't break us apart. My parents were both conflicted, and so it always makes me wonder how people in other areas reacted to the wars, because for a long time I believed President Nixon when he said the silent majority was for the war, you know, and you only learn that maybe people aren't when you talk to them personally, that they're impacted in one way or another.
Well, I never had much opinions one way or the other myself. I just kind of went along with whatever, the way the world was going.
Well, it's good that it didn't tear the community apart. I know that there were neighborhoods in Baltimore that really just sort of rife with discontent about the war, and there were families I know that I grew up with that were really torn apart by it. I felt very lucky that my brother and I, even though we were kind of on different sides of the thing, we didn't tear our parents apart. I mean, they didn't say your brother's absolutely right for going. They didn't say you're absolutely right for protesting the war. I think the important thing to them was that they loved their sons, and that, you know, they wanted to work out for both of us. When my brother came back from the war,
I think most families are like that.
I think so, but you just